Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Every once in a while, we have to bring out the big dog.
Yeah.
Oh, God help us. It's time for Danny Unleashed. Sponsored by Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Go to eastonroofing.com for more.
An even more unleashed than usual Danny Clinkscale here in the program, brought to you by Easton Roofing. I found out at about, 1:45 today, Jed told me, he said, by the way, I didn't tell Danny that you were filling in for Soren today. And so, Danny, whenever you got in and saw me here in the studio, I thought that I saw a divot in the carpet from where you put your heel in, pivoted, and walked right back out the door. But I'm glad you decided to come back into the studio.
Not true in any way, shape, or form. I am delighted to be on with young Joshua Briscoe. Once upon a time, before things went in different directions, we'd actually discussed doing a podcast together.
We had so many good ideas.
We did. It was going to be called Boomer Lennial or something like that.
Absolutely.
Something like that. And by the way, I just want to make sure I don't forget to thank my buddies over at Easton Roofing and my buddy Joe Spiker for sponsoring this segment. And in the end, I said, well, I'm going to stay because I'm getting paid to do it. Whether I like Josh or not.
That's right.
But I heard your dulcet tones as I have a standing appointment over at AFSCA, the Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, right before this segment every week. Great people over there, great company. They've advertised, I think, from time to time here at Sports Radio 810. They advertise on my website as well, as does Joe Spiker, who sponsors many things on the website, including Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. And the profile this week is actually a reprise of my conversation from last winter with Denny Matthews, which was unbelievable, really fun. And
Denny has seen a thing or two.
Yeah, I mean, here's
50 years.
Here's two facts about Denny Matthews that just reflect how interesting a life he has had. He played college football and at a high level and set records at his school,
Illinois Wesleyan?
Yes, and he never played high school football.
Huh.
And the very first baseball game he actually broadcast for public consumption was in the major leagues.
Really?
Yep. Him and Buddy Blattner in
Yes.
'69.
Yeah,
Nice.
He had done some tapes, in a press box at, Busch Stadium and stuff like that, but nobody ever heard him describe a baseball game till he did a Major League Baseball game. So... Anyway, Easton Roofing, great place. Lots of challenges these days for your roof. You can't get a better company to come out and tell you the truth, tell you that you don't need repairs if you don't, tell you that you do need repairs if you do, and they're just wonderful people and treat you right. So make sure that you check out eastonroofing.com, and you can check out Joe on commercials on my podcast and here, there, and everywhere. So now that the business is taken care of, I get to look at your lovely face.
Lovely is a wonderful, wonderful compliment. The thing that stuck for me there from the first few things you said is that you've not at any point moved your standing appointment to be after this hour of radio, which I feel like would probably be even more beneficial. If it's me or Soren, I would think that having a chiropractor appointment after the stress of this hour would probably do you some good.
Carrying us
I
for
always
an hour.
have to do some work after this, so it's probably good to come in here in a relaxed mode.
That's true.
And, but I hear your work all the time. I've always been a fan, so this is in no way, shape, or form heavy lifting for me, and I am at your whim, sir.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. I don't know if I want all of that on my plate. We'll find out. We'll see how this hour goes. Obviously, right now, I've got Twitter just rolling through, and I will continue to break and update the news of nothing happening on the Royals front. So the Cubs have pretty much been dissolved as a franchise, but nothing from the Royals front other than Danny Duffy going yesterday. What did you think whenever you saw that Duffy was on his way back to California?
Well, I thought that it was great that the Royals did something.
Mm-hmm.
I also have thought, as they won 7 of 8 games, that couldn't be worse timing. I don't know if that really would have changed the mindset of Dayton Moore. Royals have never, except for the time that they really, 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 really thought they had a chance to win the World Series, have never been really very active at the trade deadline. So he said he wanted to be more transactional this year, but that was just lip service, clearly.
Yep.
And I think it's great for Danny Duffy. That's his childhood team. He can come back here and play it for the Royals again if he wants. He can still be buried a Royal if he wants. All those things. So I was happy about it. The Royals do have some pieces that are under their control, and Dayton Moore made it pretty clear that he was going to have to be. When you're out there publicly saying we have to be overwhelmed, well, what was that message saying? Now, maybe somebody wants to overwhelm you. There's a lot of sense on Twitter that the Blue Jays got fleeced in their trade by the Twins for a pitcher who's a rental, and that they gave up 2 great prospects when maybe they didn't have
Berrios.
but they wanted Berrios, so they got him. I guess that the juxtaposition here is that we've got 3 World Championship teams from the past. When did the Cubs win?
16.
16, right after the Royals. From the past 6 years. 2 of them have won championships since the Royals, and they're just willy-nilly making trades with big-name players left and right, so on and so forth. Now, to be clear, those players in general do not have club control after this year, but Trey Turner, for instance, does. And they're doing all this activity, making all these deals, and they're not deals from the Nationals and the Cubs standpoint. They're there to try to make them win this year. They're trying to make them win in the future.
The Nationals won 2 years ago.
Right.
I mean, the Cubs at least was 5. The Nationals are.
Now,
that's the last World Series that had.
I mean, at the Trey
fans.
Turner one, I'm really surprised about that he's going.
Yeah.
Scherzer is an older pitcher who's out of contract, and he did everything. He did good service in every way you could want for that team.
Great deal for them.
But for
initially.
the Cubs to just decide, we got a lot of good players, and we just don't want to play them. We want to trade them. And it's just a different mindset. The Royals won a World Series based on their enthusiasm and optimism about the players that they had within. And if they're going to do it again, they're going to have to replicate that optimism, because it's clear that, at least as of now, any talk of them being transactional is folly.
I don't know if you heard the discussion I had about my comparison. What next year would ideally be for the Royals under this
Well, since I have a standing
energy
appointment.
I didn't know when you got out of it or what time. What time
Generally,
you got
I'm out of pocket for the first hour of the show. I hear the last 20 minutes.
I said that if keeping guys around and looking for like a quick turnaround for next year, the ideal situation is that next year's 2013, right? Coming off a 72 and 90 season, you get back to winning next year, and then you're ready to really challenge the couple years after that. That is the best you could hope for. Well, let's look and see at the 2012 team and and compare it to this year's Royals.
Well, let's talk specifically, and I'll let you finish. Specifically, Dayton Moore in the soundbite you guys just played referred to Mike Minor, Carlos Santana, those 2 specifically, maybe one other, Witt. I don't know when, but anyway, the first 2 are signed for next year.
Right.
Are they on the team just to get them to the point where they were, and then they're going to go away, and then you're going to win?
Yes. I think that's it. Moore's
why I
logic.
don't-
Yeah, which I don't.
Is that kind of where you were?
Well, partially, but let's look at the roster in 12 and
Curtis,
see who was there.
if I could be the second person to cut you off real quick, just because both John Heyman and our friend Alec Lewis have both now reported that Whit Merrifield will be staying with the Royals. So not that we needed total confirmation on that, but now 10 minutes past the deadline, especially
Sun
locked
comes
in.
up, John Heyman reports.
So just so we know, we're not apparently going to get a late breaking piece of news on Whit.
On the 2012 Royals roster, Salvador Perez, Eric Hosmer, Alcides Escobar, Mike Moustakas, Alex Gordon, Gerard Dyson, Billy Butler, Lorenzo Cain. That's the hitters. Pitchers, Luke Hochevar, Jeremy Guthrie, Kelvin Herrera, Greg Holland, Danny Duffy, all guys who pitched and played in the 14 and 15 postseason. That's 13 or 14 guys I named off there? And how many players off this team do you think will if the Royals turn around and win in 2023, how many players off this team do you think are going to be on that roster?
Oh, that's such a good quote. Oh.
I mean, almost the entire lineup.
I mean,
for 14 was there in 12.
From what we're seeing is the way the Royals are operating, doing business right now, that they're going to have Hunter Dozier and
right.
People of that ilk. They're going to have to be on the team, and they're going to have to be good.
Yeah.
That's what they're banking on, and it is a sign of faith, and it worked once. But that was such an unusual way to win a championship.
Yes.
There's mega teams out there now.
Yeah.
Not that the Royals could take them down, but the Giants were a nice team that the Royals almost beat. Sure. The Mets were a flawed team.
They were a team that played down a bit, but had championship pedigree. They'd won 2 of the previous 4.
Right, but they were a good team. But now you're trying to beat the Astros and the Dodgers and the Red Sox, and those teams weren't really relevant then. The Astros were just on the rise. I don't know if you can do it the same way. Now, hey, the Royals did something that was completely unusual anyway. They were a small market team that won the World Series. But it just seems like Dayton Moore just drives a hard bargain. He doesn't want to take risks. He has faith in his farm system, which is, since the World Series, unwarranted.
Yep.
So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot. You have to be a person who really, really believes that type of unusual history can be replicated.
And Joshua made the point in the last hour, listening after some of Dayton Moore's comments, seems to value their own minor league players, but puts very little value in minor leaguers for other teams.
Right.
Well,
how do you square that circle?
Just the comment he made is like, well, those players are in the major leagues because they're not good enough. I mean, the minor leagues because they're not good enough to be major leaguers. Well, so are yours.
We have 6 of the top 100 prospects in baseball.
Ours are better.
Those 94 others than 100, bleep them. They're
by definition, you have to, I guess,
majors.
show positive, even if you don't think it. And I think he does believe this about the Royals prospects.
No, you do, but you can't. You can't say things.
Use
this
that
is what
as
used to annoy me about the Royals television broadcast sometimes when they weren't good. Before they had a good time, they used to be on the broadcast and they'd be making fun of other fans or making fun of the other team, and I'm like, no, not allowed.
Right, you can't do that.
You can't do that. You can do that when you're the SEC,
right?
And you can say, well, take a look at my backside, Big 12.
Right.
You can do that, but you can't do it in this particular case when you've churned out almost nothing in the last 6 or 7 years from the minor leagues of any note, and then you're going to say, well, ours are good and theirs are not.
The point that you make about it being an unusual way to win a World Series as they did seems so evident here now because Dayton Moore's strategy appears to be, as a small market team, we are going to draft really well. Those guys are all going to progress really well, and we are going to see them take us to a World Series, and then we'll fill some holes with Andrew Benintendi and your Carlos Santana types. And if we need to, we can make the Johnny Cueto, Ben Zobrist sort of type of trade. But like you said, who have you seen come up this system where you go, oh, yes, clearly they've got 6 of those guys that you need to totally turn over a roster? Bobby Witt Jr. could be literally Mike Trout. If you added literally Mike Trout to this roster, they would still not be a playoff team right now.
Well, see the Angels.
Because the Angels have done it, yeah.
They've had him for a decade, and he's won. They have yet to win a postseason game with Mike Trout.
Well, to be fair now, what you can't compare them. What the Dodgers do is develop and draft unbelievably well.
Yes.
And then they trade those off for proven major leaguers, but they can pay them.
Right.
Yeah. They keep the ones they like and they really want.
That's
and then
the difference.
Move
there.
the others.
And even they can pay them for this length of time. I mean, Max Scherzer is going to make a lot of money even for 2 months.
Right.
Now, the best sign of all in this entire time of this wheeling and dealing by Dayton Moore is the Royals included money.
Well, here's something.
All right, we got something here.
John Heyman.
What?
And backed up by, it doesn't show anything else, Jorge Soler traded to the Atlanta Braves.
There you go.
That is good.
Yes, he was the one guy I thought.
When he hit 2 home runs the other night, I leaped to my phone. No, I leaped to my phone and said, I think the ball had barely cleared the wall when my tweet said, trade him now.
He going to play in right field every day?
Yeah.
Jorge Soler to the NL? We feel good about that?
Well, also,
Yeah, well,
it's a
David
National
Lesky,
League,
you
it's a
can ask him
National League
about-
team. You literally might pinch hit every day.
You can ask
That's
him
true.
about it when you have him on next hour. David Lesky says, I did not expect Slur to go to the NL. So
That's true though, Danny. That he could with whatever it costs to get Jorge Soler might be a cost the Braves are willing to pay to say you get one at bat every day. That is just who
when
you
we
are
need
for
somebody
us.
to hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
And also, hey, people play bad outfielders.
That's true.
And the Royals have played him out there. I mean, he's played, a quarter of his games maybe in the field for the Royals? Maybe not that many, but a reasonable amount. I've seen him blundering around out there.
The thing here with Soler is that he fits right back into the same exact thing that Dayton Moore has been saying of we don't want to trade guys in our long-term plans with multiple years of control. And Soler was out after the next couple months. So that is absolutely a good thing. Probably not an enormous price, and definitely not an enormous price. That was sort of facetious. Probably not much in return, but worth doing. Sounds great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is what you do. Maybe, Gerard Dyson was the 50th round draft choice.
Yep.
He became an important player on your team. Maybe the guy you get turns into something. Or
Absolutely.
maybe he can be part of a package for something else. I'm all in on this.
Jorge Soler had no chance, of, at least under his current contract, of playing playoff baseball with the Royals because they are not going to play playoff baseball this year. So that absolutely makes sense. It does not, for me, change the frustrations that we've laid out about trading guys that have value still. Dayton Moore doesn't like to make trades that hurt. Like, you have to go back. I think we were talking to Jason Anderson when I was doing Baseball Tonight a few days back of, like, you can go back to the James Shields trade, really, as being the last time. Like, moving Will Myers might have been the last trade that hurt for the Royals to make. Jorge Soler doesn't hurt anybody.
he played 184 of his 395 games with the Royals in the field.
Wow, that's way more than I thought.
That is more than I would have guessed also.
I would argue that the Wade Davis for Jorge Soler was a trade that hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. What was his contract situation at that time?
He had 1 year.
It was still just the last year of Wade, right? Because I don't think they've made a trade with a guy that had multiple years of control left since.
Did they trade Wade? I'm trying to remember. Did they trade him in season?
Yeah, that trade came down, let's see. No, December 7th of
that's what I
16.
thought.
With 1 year of yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And then I think he signed an extension with them or something like that. He had a big year, and then he signed with them, I believe.
Yeah.
So, hey, that's a good note to put on. You know, if people were out there going, well, you're just dumping all over the Royals, what are you doing? Well, we'll give credit when credit's due.
Yeah,
Davis
sure.
went to the Cubs and then signed a deal with the Rockies.
Oh, okay. After he had a big year.
Where he then led the league in saves.
Yeah, no, I almost really don't care what the return on Soler is because his window to play meaningful baseball with the Royals is closed. And so that
A live armed A-ball pitcher.
Sure.
Something. Guy might be a bullpen piece on the road.
find me a dude that throws a knuckleball
Anything's
over
better
his
than-
head. I don't like
Anything's better than
if it lands in the strike zone.
watch him just walk out the door and say, see ya.
Also, to be brutally frank, having Soler not on the team for the last 2 months maybe means you lose a few more games.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing wrong with that now. I mean, you could talk about building and whatever, but they shot this season right in the ass. In the first 70 games. So this is good. That's good news.
We have the return already also from Passon. Right-hander Casey Kalick is my guess, back to Kansas City for Jorge Soler.
Well, we'll probably get some numbers in our first time out, but still, I would, I think the way that he phrased this, I don't want to trade. Yeah, that sounds about what you were going to do. How old is he?
Casey Kalick
That's what I'm looking
is
for.
23. He turned 23 in
high
April.
That better be a college pitcher. I'll say that.
A&M.
Yeah, A&M.
Okay, well that's good.
A&M college
this
pitcher,
year, in 20 games out of the pen.
4th-round pick in 19.
Yeah, 30 innings pitched. 30 long, wide stats here.
He's got a 3.26 ERA in 2021 in high A ball.
30 innings, 33 hits, 11. Yeah,
35 strikeouts in 30 innings.
yeah.
Fourth round draft choice is about
That's
what you
it.
would expect
165
to
whip.
get for 2 months of Jorge Soler.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I have always felt that Soler, and I think obviously Dayton Moore agrees, but that big power season was an outlier,
Yeah.
and that he was just going to be a streaky power hitter, and They caught the one year that it was really going to be a huge one, and you're probably going to have to pay the guy reasonably good money because he's going to hit some home runs this year, and he's hit some home runs in the past, and the Royals probably didn't. I didn't want to sign up for that, but the way the quote went, he says, "I don't want to trade Carlos Santana. I don't want to trade Mikey Minor."
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the man's like 34 years old.
We call him Mike. He goes by Mike.
But also, it's just the kind of thing where he's my buddy, Mikey.
Yeah.
I don't want to trade my buddy. And maybe in some, I didn't hear him say, I don't want to trade Larry, my friend, so I don't know.
You just have, if you are not willing to move Mikey Minor, or Carlos Santana, you are saying we are going to play meaningful baseball in the only year they're going to be here still, which is 2022. And I don't know many people in Kansas City beyond Dayton Moore who might actually believe that they're going to do that.
And I hope, and I don't think, but there is enough evidence that the Royals' recent play would have been enough to see him say, see? Or his lieutenants around him say, that's really kind of us. Look, we can do that next year. We can pitch it a little better. Look, Daniel Lynch was great in his game. Tonight's a big night for me. Toronto can really hit. And if he went out there and backed up, not like this is
their
a
first home game
make
in
or break.
2 years.
Yeah, but they're going to be all jacked up.
Yeah.
I
they're gonna
imagine
be
the Rogers
psyched.
Center is going to be. What are they letting it be full? I don't know, but anyway, as full as it can be and crazy. And if he went out and pitched a great game, that would really say something to me. Now, hardly going to say the ship has sailed if he gets Vladdy takes him deep three times, but anyway. I saw that this will probably be a good way to wrap up the first segment because it's just a little media shot.
Oh boy!
I just saw that. I read all I read the box scores through ESPN in the morning. That's where I go, and I don't go to every box score, and I don't go to every game story. But if there's something that intrigues me, I'll look at the game story. So, based on the little headline, so it says, Vladdy hits one completely out of Fenway. Jays beat Red Sox. Mm-hmm. So I take the time and waste a click.
And probably watch an ad.
And go in there. And he hit it over the monster. That gets you out of the park. Come on, man. Now, if he hit it over the Jimmy Fun sign in right field.
Yes.
And probably most people around here aren't as familiar with the Jimmy Fun sign as I would be. It's been an iconic charity in Boston, and they've had a sign in that stadium for like 100 years. But anyway, just clearing the monster gets you out. So come on now.
That's just a home run.
Hits one complete now hit one completely out of the K. That's news.
Yes. Right.
That's news. Hit one out of Yankee Stadium? Yeah. I mean, Reggie Jackson came one light standard away from hitting it out of old Tiger Stadium. Look at a picture of that place sometime. Now, that was majestic. So, not that it wasn't a nice home run. It still went 426 feet. But
it could have just said, Vladdy hits 426-foot home run.
Exactly.
Jays beat Red Sox.
Don't make me click on that. All right.
But they got your click. They
did.
got your video ad watch. They got their 7 cents that they get from you clicking on that video.
No, they got me to mute it, is what they
Right. Hopefully that's not saving anybody's job. It's Danny Clinkscale, Danny Unleashed in here in the program. I'm Joshua Briscoe, filling in for Soren Petro. More with Danny whenever we come back.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing here. Well, it stormed. The last thing you want to mess with is dealing with it, but now you're stuck with dozens of people knocking on your door telling you everything they think you want to hear. Do not trust your biggest asset to a company that lies dormant until it storms, only to change their name and wither away after their substandard work is complete. Call Easton Roofing for a free roof evaluation. 913-257-5426. 913-257-5426. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
All right, the Joe's Kansas City Barbecue burnt end of the hour answer. Chris Duarte of Oregon. Last night, 5th oldest first-round pick in NBA draft history. I asked who the oldest was. The oldest first-round pick in NBA draft history. He was the only first-round pick to be 25 or older when he was drafted. 4th overall pick.
Sabonis.
Nope. Actually, to be more accurate, I should look at you and say, no, no, no. Dikembe Mutombo, 25 years, 7 days when he was taken 4th overall by the Denver Nuggets in 1991.
By the way, he does a very
formative
bad
experience
job
for
in
Rudy
those-
Salazar.
Very bad job in that commercial.
What?
What in the
That's a
in
great
the
commercial.
in
Yeah,
the,
but he doesn't do the no very well. He doesn't.
doesn't deliver the
I don't
line
like
very
it.
cleanly.
And there are
don't
people
like
who
it.
think
You're the
Danny
only
is,
person I've ever heard who doesn't like that commercial.
I like that.
I like
commercial.
I still like the commercial, but I'm surprised that he can't more naturally do the no. He really seems like he's reading a
He's
line.
not an actor.
But it's
Basketball player.
now look. I don't want to. I don't want to
see
side.
Peyton Manning.
I don't want to side with
do
Danny
better.
too easily.
Some people have charisma. Some people don't. Danny, the guy's not from America.
Well, don't let don't put him on then.
Here's
If he can't execute that perfectly,
here's the only.
your argument is not getting stronger.
Here's where I'm gonna just take one step over to Danny's side just for a second. It's not. No one
It's
wrote
raining
that
over
for
there, by the way.
him.
So grab an umbrella.
There's a dark cloud. It's pouring.
This segment is called Unleashed.
Sylvia-
I'm not supposed to sit
Oh,
here
I
and
know.
agree with everyone.
Sylvia Plath is being
It's
read in the back.
nobody wrote a line for Dikembe Mutombo and said, "Hey, here's what you say." It's like, "Hey, you're
That's
famous
your
for
thing.
this, right?
That's
like
your thing.
you've done
no,
this.
No.
Can you
just-
just say that again?
Just do that.
Just pretend
I guess
that-
that's part of my
just-
point. It seems like he never said it.
Right.
I just love the director going, Dikembe, I'm not really buying it. that line seems rehearsed.
By the way, I am like
kill you.
I am like the last person in the world who likes to engage in what is generally sort of locker room jibes against other people. But I'm gonna hit Josh with a shot here. Okay.
Oh no.
Josh has long been very, at least, and I think it's quite accurate. He looks quite a bit like Luka Doncic. I'm just going to say, I haven't seen you in a while, but it looks like Luka has maybe dropped a pound or two, and you might have picked up an LB or two, and you
Listen.
look a little bit less like him now.
I got to bring this beard back in. I can just bring this beard back in. You're not even gonna notice.
Did Danny just call you a fat ass?
Yeah, Danny just called me fat.
I said
He's a fat shamer.
may have.
Danny just
I
called-
really
Danny
was
just-
pretty nice if I said that
Danny just
Doncic
called me.
had dropped a pound or two.
Listen,
He might have-
what is Doncic famous for other than loving nachos? Other than playing basketball, it's loving nachos. Right. He and I have this in common. I can't play basketball like Luka, but he and I can both eat nachos at an impressive clip. And again, now he's got more cardio in him than I do. So
yeah. So if you're gonna
I've
if
been-
next Halloween you're going as Luka, you might consider.
I'm gonna have to get
few less
a
nachos.
larger jersey. Yeah, no, that's. I think that's only fair. It's why also sometimes I get Sam Darnold, less of a compliment. I think Sam Darnold looks sort of like a Lego man come to life, and that one I don't find to be complimentary.
Mark
So.
Tian actually looked like too young
Mark
for that.
Tian, really?
He looked like a Lego.
Does Mark Tian look like a Lego? I gotta Google this now.
Mark Tian was a Kansas City profile a couple.
I
weeks
love
ago.
Mark Tian. I think he's great. You did a good job with that, Danny. But yeah, Mark Tian, when he would wear his sunglasses and had his baseball hat forward, he looked like a Lego piece.
I gotta find a. Am I googling Mark Tian sunglasses
I don't know.
now? I sure am.
I'm looking at some Luka Doncic, and you do look remarkably like the man. I mean, if you said if your last name was Doncic,
I could get some perks and-
nobody would ever doubt that you're his brother.
I gotta go to
Except you're-
Dallas.
4 feet tall, but
Oh yeah, I mean, listen. How tall is Luka?
he's 7 feet almost, isn't
Yeah,
he?
I think he's
Is
6'8".
he? There's no way he's touching 7 though, right? Wikipedia says 6'7". I mean, he would.
Oh, okay.
It's
Thought
it's
a little
still
taller than that.
He's still got some height on me.
Well, there are sets of brothers who have significant height differences.
Yeah, all the Antetokounmpos are not created equal in terms of their basketball prowess. Not everyone can be Giannis. I am clearly who's the youngest of the Antetokounmpo brothers?
I don't know, but I'm just impressed the way that sort of just mellifluously rolls off your. And isn't mellifluously a great word
Great word.
because it's hard to say, and it's describes something that's supposed to be very easy to roll off the tongue. That's the description of the word, and the word itself is hard to say.
It reminds me of let's see, what is it? Oh God, it's too long to actually make the joke. The word for fear of large words is like 35 characters or something, and I like a good sort of word irony.
I
Might
agree.
be the dorkiest thing that I've ever said on the radio. That's all. There's no way that's true. I've talked about Pokemon on the radio before. Danny, I wanted to ask you how you're kind of processing some of the conference realignment and the Big 12 stuff. I think a lot of that is pretty well tilled at this point. What I did not see coming was Bob Bowlesby and his weird signature writing a letter to ESPN and saying, stop taking our teams. You are directly trying to bring down the Big 12.
Well, clearly, Bob Bowlesby has read Don Quixote. Because I think that this is a courageous but ill-fated attempt. And maybe the Big 12 can restructure itself. I think my major takeaway that maybe is something that people haven't really heard, it's not the major takeaway, but it is a takeaway that I haven't heard, is I don't really understand, well, I guess I do, but it's just so just pure greed that you can't even, what in the hell is it do for the University of Mississippi, Mississippi State, to have these two teams in your conference.
Yeah.
And you're making big money anyway. You're making big bank. Okay, yes, you're going to make more.
I want a little more money.
But my goodness, you've only had the odd window when you cheat at Mississippi or Mississippi State, or you get a all-world quarterback because he lived in your state, like Dak Prescott or something like that, and you only get those little bits of success, enough to keep your fan base believing that you should actually be in this godforsaken league. And then you're going to bring two more powerhouses in there. Now, some people are going to make the jokes about Texas and being a powerhouse and so on and so forth, but they certainly have every opportunity to be a powerhouse. And is it going to surprise anybody ever again if they, up and become a national title contender some year because they've got so much talent, so much money? So I don't, for the life of me, I actually thought when they said, well, they need 11 votes, I'm like, I was dumb enough to think,
maybe we
maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe Tennessee and the two Mississippis and maybe Auburn. We'll think about, certainly Vanderbilt.
Right.
I'm surprised Vanderbilt's still, that they just haven't said, we've got a third team and you can just take a walk.
That feels like something that happens in the next 5 years. The SEC starts evicting underperformers.
There's no non-political...
Although it helps their GPA.
There's no non-politically incorrect way to say this, so I'm not going to say it, but just think of the worst example you can see. It's almost like they're keeping this poor little whatever thing you want to say, Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim is pretty safe, I think. I think it's pretty safe.
In your league.
Yes.
Just to... say that you're nice,
right?
That you're benevolent.
It's their GPA raiser. That's what Tiny Tim is really good at actual school.
I guess that's it. So I don't get that. I don't. It's probably maybe 5 to 10% more money, maybe for you, and you're just getting gobs of it anyway. And these schools all. They cry like they don't, but they have money, and they go back to their alumni all the time. And, my hope is that it just sort of stops at maybe 4 16s. But if they're, I keep hearing Heather Dinich all the time on ESPN saying that there's a lot of talk about going for a 32-team NFL-type model, and then the rest of you be damned.
Right. It's the Super League in an American form.
And that's just hideous.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's no way a nice program, I think, like Kansas State makes the 32.
Right.
Not because they couldn't be one of the best 32 football teams, but because they're in a tiny, tiny market, they have a reasonably tiny stadium by those standards and whatever, and maybe they could squeeze. You'd have to fight hard to make a case that Missouri makes it in there.
Yeah. And
certainly Kansas doesn't right now.
Nowhere close. Absolutely not.
No, and even if they wanted to try, are they just going to do it for football? Are we just going to play football in this league?
if you have 4-16s, you could no longer have the NCAA tournament. You could have a 64-team tournament with every one of your Power 4 teams in it. And that would make, and that's the Super League logic again, right? Is that those 64 teams, no matter what, they are getting into the big postseason tournament, whatever it would be called, but you lose the Cinderellas from outside of the Power 5 or 4.
And the only reason it's better than the Super League, and obviously you're familiar with it, and you're more of a soccer fan than many people out there listening. But the charm that fought it really was relegation,
right?
And we don't have relegation in this country. And
right.
I don't think most fans. To me, the relegation promotion is one of the most glorious things in the world of sports.
Yeah,
but it's never going to happen
because it threatens the money.
Right.
There's no way.
It's never going to happen in this. But I mean, the fact that a team, and we don't need to get into promotion relegation, but in that system, a team that was playing like on a muddy field in front of 2,000 people 10 years ago can be in the greatest league in the world in a decade and that's happened. Yeah. That has happened, and it's happened recently. So I think a lot of it is, I know all the arguments from the player standpoint, and they're fine, and it always was a business, but now it just seems to be just pure business, pure artifice. I mean, and it's like every school president is to continue the Tiny Tim as Ebenezer Scrooge. I mean, is just sitting there in a cold office counting his gold doubloons. So,
in the sense though that they were doing it before, Danny, at least now it's transparent, in a sense.
That's true, but if it's going to march all over, really nice, dedicated college football fans like those at K-State or Iowa State, I'm not happy about that.
Yeah.
And those teams have at least achieved. I mean, if you want to say Kansas doesn't belong, they've barely tried in football, and if they've tried, they failed so miserably. I'll listen to that. But K-State's been good for quite a long time now.
Yeah.
And, rose from the ashes, what a great story. Well, sorry, that's nice, but we've got our Vanderbilt.
We've got Vanderbilt.
We've got Tiny Tim.
Yeah.
And you're not it. So I guess there's a certain tinge of disappointment from that standpoint. But and also we don't really know where we're going to go.
Right. What do you think the chances are that the Big 12 stabilizes and keeps it as a Power 5?
I still think there's a chance. But at least in the short term, I think there is a chance that they can get a couple of nice programs that have succeeded recently, Houston, Cincinnati, and at least before everybody else shakes out and gets their 16, Pac-12's not near it yet, Big Ten still hasn't gotten there, that's sure viable.
Yeah.
But it sure does seem to be steamrolling towards 4.
Yep.
And if there's 4, one's got to go.
Yep. It's crazy. We were talking to Ari Timken, who's frequently on the drill here, but he also works for the Big 12 Sirius XM channel. And he made the point of the Big 12 actually, as far as TV deals goes, is probably second by a conference in terms just being behind the SEC. But with OU and Texas taking all of their power to the SEC, now the Big 12 falls all the way to the bottom. He also made the point of, you mentioned Houston and Cincinnati. Makes a ton of sense as being two teams to try to get you back, not to the Big 12, but to be the Big 12 of 10. If they wanted to add those teams, they could have added them and been at 12 at this point already. So clearly there's not been the urgency there if you're the Big 12 to try to make that happen. Now the urgency has been added by default.
This phrase actually popped into my head, and I know we got a break, but to me the best chance for it to be an actual power-ish conference is to create the Big Pac-10.
The Big Pac-10.
Or Big Pac-12. Whatever
okay.
that is, and that would be 20 teams.
Big Pac-20.
But not call it that.
Big Pac-16. Just say 16, and then it has 20.
And you have 8. You still have 8.
Yep.
They have 12. You become 20. Put it into 2 divisions. Utah comes over. Whatever. There you go. And that gives you 4 conferences. You're still one of them, and you're still playing power. And if you just really almost want to exclusively play in your own conference and you still play 9 conference games, and then there's a title game for the Big Pac-12 title, and that's what you do. So that there's a little crazy idea for you.
something weird is going to happen eventually, because right now there's not a normal way for the big 8, 12, 10 pack, whatever, to actually get out of this in one piece. There's no normal path. Just like there's no normal way for us to end this hour. Danny Klingscale here in the program.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Hey everybody, Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing here. For almost 10 years, we've been a locally owned and operated family business. At Easton, we work on every job with one thing in mind: integrity matters. I grew up in central Kansas, was raised on the values of respecting hard work. We run our company every day on that value set. At Easton, we always make decisions based on the ethical, right thing for the customer. That's what integrity means to us. So if you have any questions about your roof, give me and my team a call, 913-257-5426, Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
A few more minutes with Danny Klingscale here, Danny Unleashed, brought to you by Easton Roofing. You want to tell the good folks at home, or good folks in their car, or good folks wherever they are. Maybe they're not even good folks, but you should tell them about the good folks at Easton Roofing, verified good folks.
They are absolutely good folks. They've worked on my house, they've worked on Soren's house, and they're people of great integrity. That's their slogan, and it absolutely is the case. There are all kinds of roofing companies out there, and all kinds of roofing people who just sort of fly-by-night operations who come and knock on your door. You're not going to get that type of treatment. You're going to get really the best work, and also the best idea of what you actually need. They're not just there to sell you a roof. They're there to make your house the best it can be. So make sure you contact Easton Roofing.
It's so important to have someone that can come and help with anything that is more expensive than, I don't know, $20. I would like to get as honest an assessment as possible. Here's what I need, and the folks at Easton Roofing
also to
can
be
do that for
comfortable
you.
with any type of transactions of that type.
Absolutely.
Is just makes your day, really, because so many times it is a negative thing. My wife's been in search of a refrigerator, and it's been a gigantic mess for a while now, and that just is a frustrating thing when it's just something you want that's important to you. And so anyway, Easton Roofing's a great group.
I wanted to ask you about the Olympics really quick as we wrap things up here. We were discussing Simone Biles a little bit during the commercial break, and you brought up something that I think is very worthwhile. Well,
I read something today that I was completely no knowledge of, and what it's called is the twisties, and maybe I should have known more about it. And I haven't watched that much of the standard Olympic coverage. I've watched a lot during the day and stuff like that, but at night I've been more focused on other things. So I haven't watched a lot of the straight NBC stuff, and I don't know if they've gotten into the twisties. They probably have. But for all the people who think that, this is sort of just, like a little bit of performance anxiety, it's nothing big, you just Google the twisties. Mm-hmm. These people have to do these remarkably elaborate twisting and spinning jumps, and they have to have the sense of equilibrium to know where they are.
Yeah.
And if because of anxiety or whatever, you just lose the ability, and apparently this is very commonplace for at least short periods of time among gymnasts, you basically are going to fall on your head.
Right.
Because you lose the ability to know that you're going to land. I mean, to be going at that rate of speed and say, okay, I'm spinning 2.5 times and I'm going to come down on my feet perfectly and not even stumble, I mean, that's an incredible mental process. And I can understand losing it and then saying, am I going to be able to get that back? A letter of support came out from a gymnast who was a gymnast at a high level who broke her neck and was paralyzed because she got a case of the twisties and decided to do a jump anyway. And, hopefully that this, and a lot of times this is a very short-term thing and people can bounce back, and maybe she doesn't have the twisties. I don't know. But I thought it was a fascinating thing, and it completely resonated with me as to why you would be a little cautious if you got, this particular case of what is the sort of the equivalent of, not being able to throw the ball from second base to first base, basically, I guess.
Yeah, with severe personal harm on the table, and also one thing that has been weird over the time that people have been tweeting about this with far less information than they should probably have on their hands. If you are Simone Biles' teammate in the team event that she was in, you wouldn't want your teammate to go out there and put up a performance that simply does not rise up to the standard of what your team would expect. And also, you wouldn't want your teammate to go put themselves in very obvious physical danger because of this thing that they're dealing with. It's just, it seems like something that the less information that you have on it, the more angry you're likely to be, which might be true for far more in the world, I guess, than just Olympic gymnastics, but is deeply, deeply frustrating to watch people be very uninformed about it and still very loud. But that's, Twitter.
Yes, and I just think it's a bit more information to interject into the whole discussion about the mental health challenges for athletes, because I think there's a lot of people who've dismissed this as nothing, and there's a case to be made that maybe she just didn't want to not be great.
Sure.
And, hey, I don't have it this time around, and I'm not going to go out there and stink in front of the whole world.
If you think your teammate will put up a better performance than you would have.
Right.
That actually might be kind of a selfless thing to do in that spot. Maybe it would have been easy to try to push through it and not put up your best work and not have a bunch of dorks on Twitter yell at you about it. Or you fall on your head weird and your career is over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of things to weigh in on that particular thing. So, and Joshua, unlike how you opened the hour, this was a delight.
This was great.
And next week, I guess I'm with Lebo. So you know what?
No.
I'll just compare and contrast.
I would like that.
That's all I can do.
If you'd like to come in on Monday instead, we'll just talk 2 shows in a row. Come back in on Monday. Jed can make the scheduling work, and I'll talk to you again then. Or if I don't, go to talk to you, however long that takes to do it again.
All right. Thanks, sir.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.